What the American people need to know, it's going to cost, these tariffs are going to cost them $14 billion. It's going to cost tens of thousands of jobs.
This imposition of higher tariffs on Australia is completely unjustified. I think we will continue to have a high volume of trade into the United States, but we're always looking for new markets.
The Ontario Premier, the Australian Trade Minister, considerable criticism there for the U.S. following President Trump's latest tariffs. Joining us tonight to explain all of that, talk about the U.S. economy, is U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. Mr. Ambassador, thanks for coming back on Special Report.
Thanks, Brett. Great to be here.
So let's talk about the Section 301 tariffs. 60 economies affected here. We'll put them on the screen. How does this work? Why does it work? Why are you doing it?
So the key word here is forced labor. Here in the United States, for 100 years almost, we've had a law that says if something is made overseas with forced labor, slave labor, child labor, you can't ship it into the United States. It's prohibited. And so we stop this at the border. We prevent it. We're the only country in the world that has this kind of law and effectively enforces it, believe it or not. And so what we've done under Section 301, which is a law that the Supreme Court has pointed to, that the President used before to put tariffs on China, we investigated 60 economies to assess whether they had these types of laws and whether they implement them. And we found that only a handful had this, and they didn't implement them, and then the rest of them didn't have them at all. And so we're taking action to make sure that our workers and companies can compete on a level playing field. So if we're shipping into Australia or some other place where they allow the import of goods with forced labor, we're going to make sure that we have a level playing field.
So do all of the 60 countries do forced labor, like force people to?
So I'm glad you asked that, because it's not really opining on whether they're doing forced labor in a given country. Like I said, in America, we block the import of goods with forced labor. Most of these other countries, they don't do that. So whether they have forced labor in their country or not, they may be importing from a place like China, goods that are made with forced labor. In the United States, if there are solar panels or batteries from China or other places that were made with forced labor, we stop that. But in other places, other developed economies, they don't do that.
So what do you say to people who say this is just another way to get around the Supreme Court ruling and you're just trying to figure out how to do it?
So every time the president has taken a trade action in this term, in the last term, he's always trying to get at unfair trading practices that are incentivizing offshoring, making it so our workers can't compete with foreign workers, and making our trade deficit explode. Earlier in the term, we had a tool under IEPA, is what we call it, an emergency power to try to get at all of these issues all at once. The court said that statute couldn't be used, and it pointed to other authorities like Section 301. And so now, Brett, we're going country by country, unfair trade practice by unfair trade practice, to try to target and eliminate these things and level the playing field.
So the U.S. economy seems, when you talk to folks, is doing pretty well despite the Iran situation and what's happening and gas prices. You have the Federal Reserve Chairman Kevin Warsh, new in his position, feeling pressure about whether to keep rates the same, try to convince the board to not to raise rates, and Bloomberg writes Federal Reserve officials will head into their policy meeting this week confronting resurgence in price pressures that could make their decision on whether to hold or hike interest rates a close call and a contentious one. And I guess the question is, and you are in the tariff lane, do these tariffs make it easier or harder to keep rates where they are, considering where these pressures are?
Well, I don't think it has an impact at all. If you recall, the president first imposed tariffs last April. At the time, it was on the world. Now we have a set of tariffs. It's on a smaller set. It's not the whole world. A lot of the rates are pretty similar, so it should not have any economic impact that's different than what we've been experiencing.
Is the plan to continue to expand? Now you're at 10 to 12%, is that right, on these 60?
That's right.
What's the next step?
So we have some other ongoing investigations, again, to try to achieve fairness in international trade. Right now we have an investigation, for example, targeting excess capacity. We have places like Vietnam, places like China, where they have industrial policies to give subsidies to their companies so they don't have to make a profit and they can sell and dump manufactured goods in the U.S. that makes it really hard for our workers to compete. So we're investigating all these types of programs and policies that might lead to just having way more capacity for production than demand requires. And so we're going to finish up that investigation, hopefully soon, and we'll make a proposal. I don't want to get ahead of the president or the investigation, but these are the types of investigations that could lead to additional tariffs.
You just traveled to Mexico. You met with the Mexican president. There is a talk of redoing the USMCA. That negotiation used to be NAFTA, and it became, it was adjusted under the first Trump administration. Where are those talks now, and what's happening?
So first of all, remember, during this whole period of the past year and a half, the United States has maintained full market access into Mexico, mostly full market access into Canada, who's retaliated a little bit. Right now, our talks are about making sure that we have balanced trade with Mexico. The president has already done a lot right now in putting tariffs on cars from Mexico, steel and aluminum, to the extent that GM is now announcing $6 billion today in additional investment. So our talks are really constructive with the Mexican government. They understand we need to get the deficit down. They want to work with us to reshore production from Asia back to North America. So they're very constructive. They're very pragmatic.
The president bet that tariffs would bring American factory jobs back. There's a new report out that says it didn't work. It was out June 15th, Freedom Foundation, and it has the U.S. manufacturing jobs over the last 10 years. What do you say to that, if that's the real purpose of implementing a lot of these tariffs?
Well, I do think you have to look at historic numbers. So during the Biden administration, after the COVID lockdown ended, we had a rebound in manufacturing jobs as the economy opened back up, but then we lost 220,000 manufacturing jobs in the last 2 years of President Biden. Last year in 2025, President Trump stabilized this. And now, in the first half of 2026, we've seen the manufacturing jobs go positive. So it dropped severely, we stabilized it, now it's coming back up.
So you think you've won any critics on Capitol Hill over?
Well, some of them. I mean, we have members of Congress who have submitted tariff bills to actually solidify and lock in some of the things we've done. I've been meeting with folks on the left and the right, certainly some critics, but many others who agree that we need to be using tariffs to incentivize reshoring here. They don't always agree with tactical decisions, but as a general matter, they think this is the right direction.
Mr. Ambassador, we appreciate you explaining things here on Special Report.
Thanks, Brett.
Thanks a lot.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.